So I picked up this Razor Dune buggy go-kart, and normally it's powered by a 24 volt, 350 watt electric motor. And I think the top speed's around 9 miles an hour. But this one here is powered by a Predator 212. So I think it's pretty much stock except for the header pipe and the VM22 carb. And then it looks like the governor was removed. You're running a 420 chain. Looks like the frame was cut to clear the sprocket. So I might cut up some tubing and weld up a frame out here, or a bumper, to kind of tie all this together. Then you got the gas tank mounted up here on top. I think I'll run a tank down here. I have this tank, I made it out of a reservoir or an overflow tank. And maybe I'll mount it somewhere around there and then use a pulse pump. And that way it'll get it off the top of that engine. Then you got the kill switch, then the brake cable, which was running through the center there, then the throttle cable, which I think would be kind of nice to run a longer cable through there and run that to the center too. So this thing is super light. It's almost like it's made for a little kid. So it's pretty cool. Looks like it'll be a lot of fun. So this thing should be pretty fast. I mean, it feels like it only weighs a few pounds. And I don't know how sketchy it'll be with those small tires. So I'll go ahead and pull all this stuff off here and clean it up a little bit, and then we'll go test it out. See what we look like underneath here. Okay, let's get the kill switch. Oh, you got some LED lighting under there. Pull all this stuff off here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this clutch off here. Oh, I guess I'll take it off in one piece. And hook this kill switch. So the gas tanks should be easy enough to get off. Let's see. You have the strap, hold it on, and then a bolt here. I think it's connected down here. There we go. When I remount this engine on here, I'm definitely going to have to use a motor plate or something, an aluminum motor plate, to get this engine off this wheel. So to unbolt the engine, the back's easy enough. But on this side, if you look under here, you can't get to the bolts. So this ought to be interesting. Maybe between the motor plates here or something. I think I can get a wrench down in there. So I was able to get the thing off of here. Okay, so there's our motor mount set up. So this plate has a plate underneath it. I think I'll take all these plates off because I think it'll be a lot more sanitary just to start over. So the axle will come off easy enough. Axle assembly. Go ahead and grind all this stuff off here. So I'm going to pull this bottom plate off of here and then clean all this stuff up, and clean all this stuff up. And then I'll weld up a motor mount or motor plate. And then I'll use the aluminum plate on that to raise it so it'll clear that wheel. All right. So now if we want to unbolt the engine from under here, we can. So I got it pretty well cleaned up. And I got this motor plate cleaned up. Then we have the aluminum plate that'll bump that engine up about a ½ inch, get it away from that tire, and it'll give me unlimited adjustment, which will be nice. And then I think I'll take a piece of this stock here and weld it out here at the edge. Now I will throw on my gas tank bracket. So clamp that on right there. And it's away from the frame enough. So that should work. So I think I've drilled the holes for the slider mount right about there, because it gives me plenty of room to go side by side or side to side. So day 2 of the dune buggy build, and I got it all welded up last night and painted, but there is one thing that I had to do. So when I was welding this thing up, I realized that this frame rail here on the right side was about 1 inch longer than the left side. So if you look back at the old pictures, you can see it. So I had to bust this weld on this and then shrink this in. So now we're the same on both sides. So now this thing will definitely track straight. So I'll throw my axle back on here and get this all buttoned up. And then I'll see if I can get this clutch off this engine, because I think I'm gonna have to replace this gasket because there's a giant oil leak. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to get this off. Looks like it was tacked on there. So we'll see. And then while I'm at it, I'll see what's inside here. I mean, it looks like they removed the governor, but it still has the sensor plug in there. So hopefully the governor wheel's out of there. Well, we'll find out. So that should track nice and straight. Now, I don't know how effective this brake will be. I mean, this thing's designed for 9 miles an hour and the disc is super small. I mean, brakes are kind of overrated anyway. So now while this thing's apart, I think I'll go ahead and run these cables underneath, under the middle here, instead of on the outside like this one is. One thing about it, this thing is super light. Run me a nice long cable through here, so that way I have plenty to run underneath. Run this down to the center, which will make it where I can actually turn. And instead of running the kill switch that's on the steering wheel here, I think I might run the one that's on the seat. Already has a switch built in on the side there, and it's really close to the engine. So I might as well use the one that's already on the cart. And might as well take off all these LED lights. Probably won't be riding this thing around at night. So now I got both of them running through. So now we're nice and sanitary, nice and clean, and nothing's hanging down. Then the throttle and brake cable running down through the middle, so you can turn now without the cable falling out. So now I guess I can bolt my engine plate on here. I mean, I could bolt it to the engine, but I'm gonna have to pull that engine apart. So I guess I'll just bolt it onto here first. Now we're just gonna run this plate the other way, but you can run it either way, it really doesn't matter. So I think now we're ready for an engine. So I'll see if I can get the clutch off of this one. Break out my grinder there. So this is the type of clutch without the set screws. It's definitely on here with this weld. Oh, that's what's holding it on. You know what I think I'll do? Instead of grinding this off, because I just realized that the bolt is broken off down in there. So I'm gonna have to tap this, or drill and tap it, or use a clutch with a set screw, which I'm not sure I have one with a 40 chain. So instead of dealing with this right now, I think I'll just use this Tillotson 212. So the only thing I'll need to put on this Tilly 212 is the carb, header pipe, and blower housing and recoil. So I got the carb and intake in alignment, and then that Hemi engine. I have a Hemi crank lying around when I use the Hemi block for a 223, so I have a Hemi crank I can just throw in there. That'd be a lot easier than pull that bolt out and tap that crank that's in there now. And then while I'm at it, I can throw a billet rod in there. So that'd be an easy fix. And header pipe. So it looks like everything clears nicely on this thing. So I have a 10 tooth 420 clutch I'll throw on here. Give me a nice piece of 40 chain on here, and I added a couple links because the engine is setting up a little bit higher. It's about right there. It's just nice about having an adjustable plate. It's easy to get this thing in alignment. So now I'm just going to go ahead and solder a tip on here. Instead of buying a cable with a tip, I just got to make sure I get enough heat on here so there's no chance of the solder popping off. Because, you know, that'd be a fun day. That solder popped down into the engine. So throw some flux on here to clean this off. Alright, I think that'll do it to it. And I got plenty of heat on there. Throw my slide on here. And I left a couple inches of cable sticking out. So I think that'll be about right. Let's see if we got full throttle down in there. Oh yeah, that'll work. And the good part is I have an adjustment, or I have the adjustment all the way down here so I can back it out to gain a little bit more throttle if I want. So I ended up putting a 12 tooth clutch on there instead of a 10, just to gain maybe a little bit of top speed. And then another speed trick that I'm gonna use, a lot of people don't know about. Well, some people know about it, but a lot don't. And that is, if you use the correct aerodynamic sticker, these are usually worth at least 5 miles per hour. Easy performance mod. So I got my kill switch hooked up and hooked to the one on the seat. The only thing I need to do now is install my gas tank and the pulse pump, and I think I pretty much have it. So for the pulse pump on this, I was going to pulse off the valve cover, but I don't want to deal with the oil, with it pushing oil into the pump. So I think I'll just go ahead and pulse off this intake after all, and then I'll just mount the pump right there. Make everything easy. So I'll break out my 1/8 by 27 NPT tap. Make sure I don't get no metal down in this carb, or aluminum down in this carb. So I got my pulse pump mounted there. And now I think I'll mount my gas tank about right there. Put my clamp system on here. So I got my tank on there, and then the fuel line with the filter and the shutoff going to the pulse pump, and then from the pulse fitting to the pump, and then from the carb to the pump. And I also picked up some new tires for this thing, just because these look a little bit worn out. So I think that's about it. But there is one more thing I actually do need to do. I think I was going to throw a collar on here just to keep this sprocket from moving. So I ended up adding 4 collars. So one here, one there, one underneath there, and then one next to the bearing here, just to keep the axle in place. So I think that's pretty much it. Well, there's actually one more thing I could do, which I will do, is throw a chain guard on there. But other than that, I think I can go take it for a test drive, if it'll start. Well, that's cool. This thing gravity feeds all the way up to here. So it's pretty close to the pump already. Man, this thing is super light. Picking this thing up, man, this thing's gonna be wild. Hope it steers, because the front end's so light. But I guess with my weight on it, it should. And it's just a few little pulls and this thing's already to the carburetor almost. This thing pumps awesome. All right, here goes nothing. We'll see how these brakes work. I mean, because this brake is huge. It's almost like it's designed for 9 miles an hour. This thing moves out. Accelerates fast. And these brakes feel like they're designed for 9 miles an hour. They don't stop very good. Watch how fast this thing accelerates. I think it needs jetting though. It feels like the main jet's small in this. I bet this thing has a stock jetting in the VM22 with a 95 main, because it feels like it cuts out at top end. But man, this thing is fast. And you put jetting in this thing, it'd really fly. But you can tell it's super light because it accelerates quick. Yeah, it might need some brakes though. Maybe. Yeah, it's quick accelerating. moves out. And it actually turns pretty quick too. So this thing runs pretty good. It actually handles the speed really well. I mean, it's not very sketchy at speed. I mean, it actually steers pretty good. And you definitely can tell it has a lot more in it because it cuts out at the top. So I think the main jet is probably the stock VM22 main jet, probably a 95 main. So if I swap out that main, it'll definitely gain some mile per hour for sure. But it's definitely fun, and the brake probably could use maybe just a little bit of work.